Well, it's Friday, another work week, and April's almost gone. But anyway, I hope you're doing okay. It's reaching 90 degrees and mid 90 degrees every day here in Sacramento at the moment. But it's a beautiful morning so far. So you don't need a weather report, do you? You've got your own problems. I'm wearing my my Atlantis Bookshop T-shirt, and let's see, it was from my Lawn in London tour, 2008, and it's got the whole schedule of all my talks around England on the back. So, anyway, yesterday I was reading out of this little gem from Israel Regardie on ceremonial magic, and I just read a little piece of it after I rambled on myself for a while and digressed. But this morning I kept reading along, and I'm going to read a paragraph or two where I left off, because it reminded me of on the evening of I remember the date and hour of November 15th, 1975. I had just received my Minerval initiation in the garage temple. Because it was raining outside, it was going to be in the backyard of the home of Phyllis and Grady McMurtry. Now, there wasn't really an active OTO per se going on. There wasn't lodges and things like that. There were just these handful of old Crowley era ninth degrees that still were left alive, and they wanted to resurrect the OTO after the death of Carl Germer. It's a long story. But anyway, it was a cozy, wonderful evening, and it was just initiates initiating a new initiate. And in hopes that it would be among the first and we'd get everything rolling again, which absolutely happened. Be that as may, I was a wide-eyed, naive 28-year-old musician, which of course means I was just an unstable bum. But after the initiation ceremony, I had a wonderful, wonderful meal that Phyllis prepared to the recipe of Jane Wolfe's chutney. It was sort of a Middle Eastern dish. Anyway, I asked Grady, sitting at the table. I've got here somebody that Aleister Crowley personally initiated in England in the 40s. And I said, what would you recommend that I start doing rituals and stuff? And what should I start doing at home? Or what would you recommend? Because I've just been, piddling around. And he said, well, I suppose you should, you could, start by the opening of Watchtowers. I didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. Opening of Watchtowers. And I said, okay, well, I made a mental note of that for sure. And I was hoping it was something a little more bonehead than that. But anyway, when I got home and started digging around in the set of the Equinox that I had a beautiful Llewellyn, early Llewellyn edition in 2 volumes of the Golden Dawn, and I looked at the opening of Watchtowers, or what was identified as such, and it was long and verbose, and that had a temple opening and a sprinkling of water and a long poem and a blessing with fire and a long poem and circumambulations and picking up incense and a long poem and I said, what's this got to do with watchtowers and things like that? And then there was these strange words in Enochian, Mor Dial Hectica, born upon the banners of the, it really didn't strike home why this would be a fundamental beginner's exercise. Geez. And well, I've eventually worked my way, around it to make sense of what Grady was telling me was just absolutely true. It's just took me a few years to have it drummed into my head that, that's what he meant. And when I started to get into studying Enochian magic, then it really struck home, because it more or less dealt with what are the first steps that you take in magic. You create in your home, around your body, you make a temple. You work in a temple, whether that temple is a garage, or if that temple is a closet, whatever it is, a temple, and you make a temple, and you fortify the temple. You make it safe space. You feel comfortable in it. You clean it. It's a clean place. And this opening of Watchtowers is like a magically clean place. Here's what Regardie says here. Only take a second. He said, one of the most effective, and this is right at the very beginning of this ceremonial magic mechanism or ritual, one of the more effective traditional methods of preparing a room for use as a temple for active ritual work or for quiet meditation is called opening by Watchtower. And that's what Grady was referring to. It may seem to the beginner frightfully complex and difficult. In reality, however, when studied, and above all when practiced, it becomes remarkably simple and direct. Besides possessing its own utility as well as charm, the method is capable of development in a variety of different directions. He wants you to work on this, work from it, develop from it, mutate it for your own purposes. But I digress. Is capable of development in a variety of different directions so that, if need be, it can be elaborated into a major ritual for all occasions and all purposes. It may require some study at first, followed by some little practical experience over a period of weeks or months, depending on personal ability, as well as time available before this conclusion may be recognized. Yeah, for me it was about 5 years. It incorporates most of the better features that once characterized the Golden Dawn. These include the pentagram and hexagram rituals, which need to be studied and meditated upon. In a special sense, the pentagram is another ritual which, with deliberation, can become an armamentarium of approaches which the casual student may not perceive at first. In other words, armamentarian in your arsenal of magical tools and weapons. The term Watchtower is borrowed from the Enochian system of Dr. John D. and Edward Kelly. They theorize that each quarter of the earth stood a tower guarded by angelic and elemental forces. Now we get a little hint of this when in sort of more natural kinds of rituals, like we open the quarters in a witchcraft rituals, or honor the quarters and stuff. That same thing, only this is turning an electron microscope onto the quarter to see the infinitely fractalized spiritual forces within that quarter. I'm sorry, I digress. They theorize that each quarter of the earth stood a tower guarded by an angelic or elemental force. Like that. A tower. Okay, I'm going to talk more about this in a second. These metaphysical concepts are represented in actual practice by the elemental tablets. And he's referring to elemental tablets of the Golden Dawn. This would be the elemental tablet of air. These metaphysical concepts are represented in actual practice by the elemental tablets placed at the 4 points of the compass in the temple room being used. The full comprehension of these tablets demands close attention and study of the Enochian section in Volume 4 of the Golden Dawn. Admittedly, to draw and paint the tablets requires the expenditure of much time and energy, and this may make some students hesitant before going any further. However, a compromise is available, lessening the demand for time and energy. So in other words, if you're going to hang an image of these tablets, there's an abbreviated way to do that. The sigils at the top of each of the tablets or watchtowers may be painted on board. Now, though that's the sigil of air. It's very, very simple. The Enochian experts out there will recognize that T with the 4 yods on top is the 4T on the key cell of the letters and numbers that surround the sigillum Dei Meth, but I digress. This is the sigil of water, and this is the sigil of fire, and of earth. Putting those up in the quarters is an abbreviated way of putting those up in the quarters. Oh, and you'll notice that all of those are represented in the tarot structure as the 4 aces. Okay, and I think that's where I'm going to going to stop with the Regardie thing. Now, DuQuette wrote a book called Enochian Vision Magic a number of years, and this is the newest edition, with a wonderful foreword by my friend Jason Louv. And there is a chapter called, well, where is it here? There's a chapter called The Golden Talisman. That is the Golden Talisman. It's on display. It's on display at the British Museum, and it's labeled by John Dee. But in all likelihood, Dee didn't make the gold tablet. He made the design, and that gold tablet was made probably after Dee's death and after the publication of A True and Faithful Relation, about 25 years after Dee died. Nevertheless, I'm going to talk about this for a second, because look at all of those watchtowers. And then coming out of the watchtower, we got 1, 3, 6, 1, 5 across, and 4 little crosses, and then 16 things, little slash marks there. On June 20th, 1584, an angel said to John Dee and Edward Kelly, "Now therefore hearken unto me, for I will open unto you the secret knowledge of the earth, that you may deal with her by such as govern her as your pleasure, and to call her to a reckoning, as steward doth the servants of the Lord." That was the angel Ave. Let's see if I can find Ave for you on a Sigillum Deameth. Ave's got a gig. He's got a house. Where's my Ave? Ave. There's Ave. I can keep my finger on Ave. Right there, I'm pointing to Ave. See, he's on the Ave. Okay. You didn't need to see that. I could have just told you. What am I wasting our time here? Very early on the morning of Wednesday, June 20th, 1584, Edward Kelly was aroused from a deep sleep by something patting him on the head. He opened his eyes and beheld an angel, quote, clothed with feathers, strangely wreathed about him all over, unquote, standing at the head of his bed. The angel would later identify itself as Ave, one of the sons of light from the Sigillum Deameth, like Lon said. Ave proceeded to project a vision that would dramatize the elements and structure of the entire system of Enochian magic as widely practiced today. The following is from Dee's diaries. Quote, there appeared to him, Kelly, 4 very fair castles, standing in the 4 parts of the world, out of which he heard the sound of a trumpet. Then it seemed out of every castle a cloth to be thrown on the ground. And that sort of ribbon there is like the cloth. So at that castle there, somebody stuck out and they unrolled that carpet there like that. Like rolling out the red carpet for movie stars, okay? There seemed out of every castle a cloth to be thrown on the ground, of more the breadth of the tablecloth. Out of every gate then issued one trumpeter. That's the one, the Roman numeral 1 there at the top. One trumpeter, whose trumpets were of strange form, wreathed and growing bigger and bigger toward the end. It just means it's flared out. After the trumpet followed 3 ensign bearers. So let's see the Roman numeral 3 right after that. After them 6 ancient men with white beards and staves in their hands. Then followed a comely man with very much apparel. That's that giant one there. On his back, his robe having a long train. After him came 5 men carrying his train. Then followed one great cross. There it is right there. And about that 4 lesser crosses. These crosses had on them, each of them, 10, like men, their faces distinctly appearing in the 4 parts of the crosses all over. After the crosses followed 16 white creatures. Okay, now what he's describing is a hierarchy of angelic forces. And there's a hierarchy, the same hierarchy is for the east and the south and the west and the north. There's 4 sets of them like that. And DuQuette has thoughtfully provided this little thing here. It says, the cloth of lily white. So this is the west, I think, here. 1 trumpeter, 3 ensign bearers, 6 seniors, a king, 5 princes, and 5 crosses. Now, a lot of you are already putting 2 and 2 together and seeing all of that represented in each of the elemental tablets. Okay. Bear with me. The highlights of the highlights of Kelly's vision would eventually be memorialized upon the round talisman etched in gold, which today is on display at the British Museum. Much as I'd like to believe this object was fashioned by Dee himself, it's almost certainly a forgery patterned upon the flawed image printed in Casaubon's. Casaubon really fucked things up. True and faithful relation. For reference, however, I will continue to refer to both the vision and the image as the Golden Talisman. The 4 castles or watchtowers form a cross, the center of which was a circle supported by 24 columns. Figure 64 illustrates the lower quarter of the Golden Talisman. That's what I just showed you. Ave would elucidate upon the nature, powers, and hierarchical status of the characters of the Golden Talisman. Eventually, he would go into far greater detail by projecting and organizing all of it upon what he called the Great Table, or the Table of the Watchtowers. Now, the Table of the Watchtowers would be all four of these put together. Okay. The Great Table is the Rosetta Stone of Enochian magic. How it was received and how it is connected to information Dee and Kelly had already received concerning the 91 parts of the earth presents us with perhaps the most convincing proof that the two magicians were indeed in contact with non-corporeal intelligences of a superior nature. So that's what DuQuette did. And the book contains the illustration. There are the four sigils there. And the hierarchy of characters. Let's see if we can find them. There'd be the three, first of all, the three great secret names of God, right there. In this case, OTO. And then there's the six, right there. There's the planetary seniors. And there's the great king there, that swirl. And the five crosses. There's the five. Each of the subangles have a cross. Each of those subangles there would be equivalent to one of the 16 court cards of the tarot. And well, you can assume that the rest of the characters of the vision of the Golden Talisman find their place in the workable, quite workable Enochian system. And they're triggered by a series of calls in the angelic tongue. It is pretty awesome. It really is. So when I asked Grady, hey, what do I begin with? He said, well, you can start by opening of the Watchtowers. And I leave that same advice to you. Now, the Golden Dawn material opening by Watchtowers is magnificent. And it's awesome. And it's wonderful to behold. And it's helpful for you to... it'd be glorious if you memorized it. But it probably seems like in 1898, people had more time on their hands. And not only that, but they had an attention span. And we don't anymore, it seems. So it's good to, at the very, very least, understand what the huge dilated opening by Watchtowers ceremony is, and then devise your own, customize your own to something that makes sense. It couldn't hurt, at the very least, for you to understand the complexity of what is behind each of the quarters, and at least recognize that as you're learning your basic rituals, your pentagram ritual, banishing and then invoking, and your hexagram rituals, all of your beginning kind of stuff. And at the very least, put the aces of a tarot deck that you may own in the quarters. Or if not, I suggest you paint yourself your own tablets so you can actually install that hierarchy of spiritual forces in yourself. Anyway, that's my scattered words on the opening by Watchtower, and that's what I'm going to end my business week with you with that, and hope that you go out and have some kind of summer kind of fun. And if you have the time, join me tomorrow for Saturday morning cartoons. Until then, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.